introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Nick DeVries. I'm the chair of the gallery committee here at Crossing Arts, and I'm here with Emmy Fuller. Emmy approached the organization through our open call for exhibitions, and she was one of the artists that we sat down and said, yeah, we're going to do this. These look great. So first off, I just wanted to ask you can you give us the brief bio? Like, how did you end up in art, in painting? Were you somewhere else in a different media first? Or like, what's your kind of road to getting to where we are right now?
You know, I'm 72 years old.
I know. So we can.
We're talking.
We can just.
Where do you want me to start? 1962. In a nutshell, I was born with an artistic gene, and I know that because I found family members. My mother had it, who, they're all doing it. Well, they're not all, but half of them. Half of my blood is Cain's blood, the other is Abel. Well, I'm half of my family, and there's that other half. So I ended up through a vocational school. For many reasons, I couldn't finish college, and I ended up in vocational school and took commercial art. So that led me down the road to graphic design and art direction, and that was my career. And I was explaining to that young man back there that when you're doing client work, you're addressing what the client wants, and everything in commercial work is truncated. It's call to action, get out. So bullet points. So I had to unlearn that, but I didn't know that I was unlearning it. I had to unlearn it when I started writing, because you can't write a novel out of bullet points. So then, at the time, my art, when I retired early, my art was basically watercolor, more illustrative, more traditional styles, recognizable by everyone for what it was. And there was a period, I lived in Brainerd for 16 years, and there was a period of time, I'd say for about 10 years, when I could not draw a straight line. I could not get anything creatively out of me. And that's where Casey Hockholder came in. CLC offers after 62, you can take a free class. Sure. Of course, it took a while to get, it eventually cost me, I think, $7. But anyway, I got in the class. And I took a beginning drawing class, and somebody asked me, why are you doing that? I said, because sometimes you have to go back to the beginning. You just have to start fresh. But that's what did it. And I only went through half the course because, those young kids, they don't know how to take care of themselves. They come with their sneezing and their sicknesses, and I'm sick every 2 weeks. But that was, he had just taken that job. That was his first, I think he wasn't even hired at that point. He was just like a sub or something. Okay. So yeah, it was because that class was there that started. But it was 3 years ago that I moved from Brainerd Lakes area to the southwest Minnesota region. I'm in Montevideo. And I requested some funds from our local regional arts council. Yay, regional arts councils, yes. Thank you, state legislatures. We love you for providing funds for the arts and the other things that you do in that legacy grant. By the way, I am the Chippewa County representative on the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council. So before that, I requested a $2,500 grant to do a website and other practical things, because I'm not a spendthrift. And so I was very practical in my approach. And when you apply for these grants, some of you may know there are panelists who read these grants, and they all have something to say about what you said. And in my case, there was somebody who said, gee, she said she's self-taught. I wish she would have asked for a class. It didn't occur to me. That to me would be a frivolous, I can already paint. I know where chalk is, so I don't need, right? So it turned out that the web developer I hired, we did not work well together. I found someone else who was extremely inexpensive, so I went back and I said, well, I have this money left over, can I take a class? And they said, sure. So I found a class by a woman probably my age who is experienced with watercolor, water media, and the class was called Abstracting Nature. My brain did not connect at all with the word abstracting. I just saw she did nice watercolor work, and I thought, oh, that'll boost my watercolor skills. So I took her class. It was online. It was brutal. I couldn't do it. I can't even tell you how I couldn't do it. It was so bad, but I was intrigued. And so here comes YouTube. I got on the TV and I started looking up the New York school, the original American abstract painters. I listened to what they had to say. I found some abstract painters who I just was fascinated with, and one of them, I always give her credit, is Louise Fletcher from the UK. Her presence is everywhere online. And I think she came out of the depths of stuntedness in painting not too long before I did. So she offered a free class. There were 4 sessions. Couldn't do it. It wasn't until the last one. And then it was like the universe opened up inside of me. I can't tell you how emotional. I feel goosebumps even now coming up through my body, and I have not stopped painting yet, because this is all the language that I know internally, that my whole being and your whole beings, hey Carol, you should be impressed, eh? We have some things to talk about. It is the language we all have, because all the time, everything in us is having an experience, and it's being recorded somewhere in us. And we never hear about it because we're so busy editing our conversations and our thoughts and our behaviors to everything around us and everyone around us. So for me to open up to this was like just miraculous, and I just can't stop. Now, there's a couple of other things.
This is the easiest interview I've ever done.
Oh,
so.
yeah, I'm a talker.
Yeah,
you got nothing to do, right? You go sit down.
Yeah, you can just keep going.
Yeah, so another component recently, a few months ago, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, this is something that I had experienced off and on for decades, but when it went away, it was like, oh, I'm fine now. So then it'd be fine for years, and it came back. Well, last summer, it went away, but then it came right back. And that scared me, because I'm 72. I don't have a lot of time to waste, right? I need to wake up and do some work. So I asked my nurse practitioner to refer me to the Mayo, because they have a chronic fatigue fibromyalgia clinic. I learned so much about how y'all have central sensitization and the amygdala is going wild in all of you, and it can be inspired by any kind of trauma, but what happens in your brain is amazing. So there are paintings in here now, new ones, that talk about what happens in your brain, how you experience trauma in your body, in your brain, chronic disease from trauma. So there's 3 or 4 paintings here. This one, Broken Hearts. This one, Incomplete Circuits. This was an earlier one that's over here. Loose Wires. This was a couple years ago, but it's like, well, that's right. Is there another one? Oh, and this one, Friend or Foe. You have no way of ascertaining anything, right? You just are in the space you're in. So this fascinates me. At the same time, you'll see on my bio, somebody pointed out there's a line that got added that probably shouldn't have been in there about industrial such and such. You don't see any evidence of that here. But that's another road that I've gone down, that is a series of more graphic style, highly styled pieces that I will hopefully be building into 3D clay objects, start later this year. Okay, anything else?
That's great. I think that's a wonderful baseline. One of the questions I always like to kind of bring up, especially with more abstract work, is where you fall, and you kind of hinted at this a little bit, between sort of like intention, your intention, and interpretation. When some artists are, I did it, it's out the door, I don't want to hear what you have to say about it, I don't care, it's up to you.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Where do you kind of...
Okay, you said 2 things, which were not that. You said intention and...
Interpretation.
Interpretation. So I have no intention other than I want to paint. So when I'm done with the painting, I will hang it above the fireplace, and then I can see it when I go through rooms if something needs to be tweaked, whatever. It doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a title, I don't know what it is, I don't know what I was doing, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what I was doing, and it gets a name. When it goes into a show like this, if somebody else looks at it and says, but that's a partridge in a pear tree, if it works for you, great. It doesn't matter. However you feel about the painting is what this is about, this abstract expressionism. Abstraction, the more graphic styled, the paintings that I've started there, which you have not seen, but they're online, amyfuller.com. They are intentional. I have a thought about what I want to have happen there.
One thing that I noticed right away coming through the work, and I think it makes sense to me now because of some of that background information about your, art direction, is that there's a solid sense to me of composition in the work.
Good, thank God.
That's not always obvious to people when they're experiencing abstract works.
No.
And in some ways, it can be even more of a classical composition, and it really grounds your work. And so there's kind of one side of process. Maybe you want to break it down like this. You're going to be, moving the eye around. And then the other one is, hey, I'm kind of doing this.
That one.
That one, okay. That's what Casey does.
That one. Is there anybody here? I know there's at least one person taking the class tomorrow. Okay, I know there are a few people, but you will be there. So what you'll experience in the class tomorrow is why this is so hard to do. And so it works. And I will tell you, these paintings could have 20 layers of paint on them. Somebody asked me about, black lines. One of them, why the black? It's like, well, I usually start out with a big bold line or some scribbles or whatever, because you got to get into the painting. You just got to get into it. But then it leads you along a merry path of usually nothing. It's like, and you just work it and you work it, and the palette's not right, and then you change it and you go in. But it is, again, it's not an A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3. It's, if you think about all the things, just took a moment to imagine all the things you are experiencing right now that are not in your brain. That's why you make an abstract painting. Well, that's how I make an abstract painting. I just let it. And my husband, my dear, helpful husband, who made all of these beautiful frames, will tell you, it looked good to me. and then what? And then, well, it looks good. No, he just goes through the studio, and it's like, okay. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does answer. Do you feel like so your process is much more sort of active and
very
interactive and kind of like a call and response with the piece where you're at.
Yes.
Do you think that there's some of that stuff you had to unlearn, kind of scaffolding a little bit in terms of the formal qualities, the finished work?
I think if you say that the composition is there, then I would say yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people paint abstract thinking it's like, oh look, I put a lot of paint down here and somebody bought my painting and isn't that great? Okay, it's fine. That's not what I'm doing. I want to create an experience for somebody who, when they take this home and they live with it, they can live with it for years, ever changing, because it is complete. It has its own statement. It has it's viable. It's pliable. It has energy. Like this was painted up in Duluth with a friend of mine, David Austin, who is a maximalist abstract painter. It's a lot. As opposed to, imagine a minimalist. I mean, he just throws everything in. But for a time, he was doing regular Saturday YouTube video shows. And so we met up at Park Point, and he invited me to come up and do a show. So I did a show. And we painted together. And so this painting was started and practically finished there. And it's called Water in the Rocks. He was building a backyard pond water feature thing, and somehow that integrated into me and came out to this. And so I knew what it was when it was done, but I didn't know what it was in the beginning. And what was the question? I got excited about that. You don't even know. So, in terms of, they have a life of their own.
Sure.
So when you take a painting home, you have not necessarily a friend, but you have a life force in there that you can re-experience. Now, the two paintings behind you, somebody mentioned to me, they're very quiet. They're gentle. I can do that. And I can do back alley. So, yeah, I mean, all of that is in here.
So my last question before we kind of toss it out here is kind of just dovetailing off of that sort of experiential thing where somebody takes something home. Now, we're in a gallery setting, and sometimes when people walk through a door in a gallery like this and they see abstract work, they feel a little intimidated maybe. They feel like I don't know how to interact, or I don't know how to interface with this. I don't know art, I didn't take classes.
Right.
Do you have kind of like that, any rules of thumb or how to approach the work, if it's yours or if it's your friends from Duluth or any kind of work?
I can't talk about David's work. I mean,
not him, then forget
right,
that.
that's not it. But, okay, did I talk to you about this painting, Cold Wind off Lake Superior?
No.
Okay, we talked about that. This is a great example. So I showed that painting in an art fair at Park Point a couple years ago, art festival. And there was a woman who came into the booth, and this happens a lot. But she said it out loud. She looked around, she said, I don't get it. And I said, well, let me see if I can help you with that. And she was willing. And so I said, okay, so this painting is, and we're on Lake Superior, right? We're at Park Point. I said, this is called A Cold Wind Off Lake Superior. Now, if I had painted that with a boat on the water, you might say, nice painting, one would hope. That's not really my thing. I said, but can you feel the cold wind off Lake Superior? And she considered, she said, I can. I want to go home and try that. So that's what I do with people. I remind them that this is not an object, this is an experience. Broken hearts. What? Live with it for a while. See if you can get the story out of it. And I should add, I am a storyteller, and so all of these tell a story. I'm always telling a story. I was built to tell stories, not lies, like some people think, but stories.
Oh yeah.
Well, that finishes it for my little batch of questions. Anyone from the audience here have any?
And thank you all for being here. If I didn't say that, I appreciate it.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What medium are you using? Are these
Acrylics.
all acrylic?
Acrylic
That's a good
markers,
point, but I
acrylic
think we can do it.
pencils, China markers, a variety of materials. Yeah. Yeah. I would use oils, but I have a lot of allergies, so and lung issues, so I just really can't do it. I can't. Yeah. So if you want to varnish the painting, feel free when you get it home, but I'm not doing it for you. I don't want to die in the process.
The painting behind you,
Yeah.
you said that you finished that almost in one day, almost in
Most of it, yeah.
Is that common for your work?
No, well, it can be. That's a good question, because some of these things will roll right out of me. It's like, whoa, I guess that needed to be said. And then I'm so happy because I look what I can do, and it's so easy. And then like it's months later, I'm still in this other 75 layers later, I'm still working this other thing. But I got to finish it because it's a story. So it just depends. Yeah. I mean, I've got little pieces. I got a couple of little pieces over there. Some of those things they can take a month to do, and it's painting over and over and over because it just doesn't have the life that it needs to have. Yeah.
Do you keep a sketchbook, or do you have a sketchbook?
I do. I'm going to start because of the clay.
Okay.
I realize, and I love to draw, so I kind of missed that part where those graphic ones I'm talking about, I get to draw those out first. That's fun, but I can't.
Yeah.
But I did discover, and again, if you go on YouTube, some of these people I learned do sketchbooks, and I'm fascinated with them. But I have it has come to be that I can't replicate anything that I do, so what's my point? Because when I do that, it's like, oh, look what I did, and I can't then leave that and come here, and it doesn't happen. It just, its own thing happens. Like, how does that painting happen and that painting happen out of the same person? I don't know.
So,
You keep a journal when you get like a spark on comes that thought. I mean,
well, I'm also a writer, so in here I have titles. I have many titles, and I have tried to plan a series. So I might have something, but that goes in the garbage because it's not what happens. You know, every day is new. Every minute is new. But good question.
Yeah, but you show this scale, there's a common scale, but the piece on the front, then you have smaller ones. How do you decide? What
Well,
size?
when you have limited space, it's hard to decide what you're going to show. And so I felt, I do a number of these 30 by 30s and 24 by 30s. And I felt that it was easier to read for people when they come in than a bunch of jumbled little things.
Sure.
We did have a smaller painting in the end that sold immediately. Thank you very much. So we quick threw something else up there, which is a work on paper, which is smaller. And the large one in the front, as my husband will tell you, we are about to embark on a series of more 3x4s and 4x4s because I have a show coming up in La Crosse in the fall and winter that has enough space that can accommodate some of those pieces. So I'm excited to get it
You
in.
paint different?
No,
on those
I was
larger
shocked.
ones? No.
No, it's like,
okay.
this is easy.
Huh.
Well, I mean, it's not, but it was like no different.
No intimidation by twice
I
the
thought it
size.
would be like, that's a big piece of canvas there.
Yeah.
It's empty, but no. So, yeah. Keith, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, she's also done a few of the smaller ones to where she'll set them up together and then she'll paint them all together, then we'll separate them a little bit in a frame. We've done that a couple times.
Well, and I've only done that recently with these little ones because I want to offer something a little more affordable for people. So they're not framed, they're just a small canvas. Here's an example of what that looks like. But I recently did, there's 6 of them that are on paper. I do like to work on paper, but I've been so caught up in the canvases. So I did some that I think were they 6 by 6? I can't remember. I don't remember what they're small anyway. And we matted them, and then Keith built these beautiful oak frames for them. Oh, gorgeous. They're not here, and they are not even on my website. I'm reserving them. I'll be doing the Hackensack Art and Book Festival, that one-day festival. So I will take smaller works up there, and then I will be doing a couple things in Granite Falls in the fall. So I'll show them there, and then they'll go on my website if they don't sell. But they are beautiful. And if you want to see how beautiful they are, get a card, give me a call, I'll show you.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
Kind of looping back to some of the comments you've made about like, how does this or this come out of the same artist? And one of the things that sometimes artists struggle to do or get hemmed in by is thinking about a cohesive body of work.
Yes.
So in one sense, you're kind of telling us you don't feel like it's maybe cohesive, but, and I would, I've got my own kind of theory on how this comes together, even though there seems to be disparate kind of personalities in the paintings. Do you have any kind of takes on your own cohesion as a body of work? Is that something
I'm
you push
too old to
towards?
worry about it.
Yeah.
Right? I really am. It's like, this is what I paint. If you like it, take it home. You like that one, you probably won't like that one. But somebody's going to see that. Or like one of the all-time favorites, it's going to go home somewhere, is Back Alley. People respond to that in a visceral way. It's like, ugh, I know what that is. And somebody else wants something quiet. Or like the spring tulips. Oh, I love that time of year. They just feel better. I'm giving you the stories that I have in me. I'm not curating them. And I have yet, shockingly, to hear from any of you all who have said, yes, we would love to have your work in our gallery. Try to shut me down. It's like, no, we want that, we want that, we want that. So I'm trusting you all know what you're talking about. I'll just paint. Now there's a couple of men here who I haven't heard anything from. You guys got voices? You got thoughts, ideas?
I'm 72 also, so you just keep going.
High five. Yeah, we got this far. Who knows what's going to happen when we walk out the door? Anything from you? You got anything? No?
It's just amazing to look at your different representations. And
Boy, like that. You said disparate personalities. I like that idea that yes, because they are stories. They're each their own.
I
The
can
title
attest,
of your show is great.
Thank you. Yes, we like that. You don't have to lie to me, but I don't think you did.
No,
So thank you.
yeah, mine stays good. Yeah.
Well, and that's why I do it, because it's like, I don't know. I don't know what else to call it. It's that. Go ahead.
I can attest that she can change it from one in the morning to the afternoon or evening and stuff, because I'll work 10-hour days. And I'll pass through the studio on my way to work, and I'll see the canvas on the easel. And then when I come home from work, it's completely different.
So are we good? Everybody feel comfortable and satisfied? Thank you again for coming and listening to me, because I do love to talk.
Yeah. Thank you again for being here.
Yeah.